to let you all know is that yesterday I had a free webinar talking about my subscription service, the alert service, and what it was about, it was basically telling people that, hey, we're going to be raising rates on at 11:59 on October 5th. So if you guys get in before that, we're going to keep the rates the same for you. You'll be grandfathered in at the old rates, and then as of October 6th, the rates go up. So if anybody's interested in seeing how I do this and the alerts and all this stuff, that's the way to get in and get in before the prices go up. Now, go check this out. You'll see everything that I present and everything I talk about. We got a lot of interesting things. When we come to these webinars, it's always we're talking about ourselves and how great we are and all that kind of stuff. But if you can see here with the screenshot, I actually put in a lot of testimonials because I thought it was a little bit more, I don't know, warm or receptive to have you guys see the other people who've been in the Moxie service, who've been listening to me and see how I trade and how I teach and everything that they have good to say. And I thought that you guys might really appreciate seeing that. So go check out the replay, see about getting in before the prices go up. They go up at 11:59 on October 5th, 11:59 p.m. And then also on October 6th, I have my once a month live trading. So if you guys want to come check that out, get in at the cheaper price and then come check me out for the live trading. We can go make some trades. You can ask me questions and we can see what we can do here. We dropped a couple links in here and then we'll keep moving forward. And then if anybody wants to know more information about me and what I do, profitpilot.com, got newsletters and then services. You can go over here and purchase a couple things if you're interested there. So I'll circle back around to this in a little bit. Thanks, Marina. Do appreciate it. So yeah, let's see what is going on with the market today. Now, we do keep getting the market pushing up. Ever since we had this kind of oversold double bottom bounce. And what I've been looking at here and trying to figure this out, there have been some moves, some individual names moving, but as far as the overall market and what it's doing, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere for me. I'm waiting for something different to happen. So other than when we got this move here that started the uptrend, what I've been looking for is, okay, eventually this is going to roll over, and for me to determine that this is going to be the start of a new trend, I need to see something happen, and what I'm waiting to see happen is price come down and eventually test and use the hourly 50 for support. Now we're going to have to just wait and see how long that's going to take. In the meantime, I was actually thinking that we might be seeing some weakness today because I typically talk about price bouncing off of the 15-minute 50. Well, yesterday it did that, but this is what's challenging about this market right now in this particular situation is that my usual go-to of the 15-minute time frame was actually underneath the 15-minute 50. And the 8 was underneath the 21, and I actually was expecting a little bit more sideways here, thinking price is maybe going to get stuck underneath the 15-minute 50, and then we'd be heading down to test that hourly 50. That is clearly not what's happening today, and what you can see here is it looks like it's more about the hourly 21 that it seems to have found some support and wanted to move up. So now I kind of look at this and say, okay, well, where's our next thing? Maybe we come up and we hit the hourly 200. I'm not quite sure yet. I'm still going to be reverting to my 15-minute time frame with the 15-minute 50 SMA and see what we can do there. But that's my general goal and general idea is I got to wait and see when price comes back down and runs into the hourly 50 and whether that holds or not. And that's going to tell me if we are going to be starting a new uptrend or if we're going to be failing to some new lows. So that's what I'm really looking forward to in the next few days. The other reason I'm looking at that is because on the daily chart, the 8 is still below the 21. That is still technically a bearish situation that we're in. Right now we're just in a bounce. And if any of you guys know my elf shoe pattern, here's your leg, here's your heel. This is generally the arch of the foot. That first move from low to high is the arch of the foot, which implies that price eventually does have to come back down, retest some lows somewhere. We're never quite sure where the low is going to be, but has to come back down, do a double bottom, retest some lows, find support, and either it finds support and moves up, and now we've got a new uptrend, or it doesn't hold these and we keep going further down. So that's where I'm looking at on those situations there. But I'm looking at this and saying, I've seen this picture before. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer for it to actually happen, but I'm looking for price to come back down and retest some things. The Qs are generally going to be the same idea, the same story, just a little bit different with their moving averages and how they're doing it. You could see yesterday was much clearer as far as the 15-minute time frame. It bounced right off of the 15-minute time frame. And today, though, we are running into the hourly 200. So we have to, is that going to be the resistance? Is it going to push past it a little bit? We're just going to have to wait and see, and wait to actually watch for price to break down underneath and get underneath these moving averages. Same kind of deal. The daily 8 is still underneath the 21, so this hasn't confirmed to the upside yet. I'm still waiting for something like that. The other thing, big picture, is the hourly 50 is also still below the hourly 200, and I look at that as still near term bearish. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean price is going to go and create new lows. It just means that as far as really being able to call this the resumption of an uptrend isn't there either, because the fast moving averages are still below the slow moving averages, and that is that's not good to the upside. George Lane student, huh? Glad to see you. Yeah, so I do use some stochastics. You see them down at the bottom. And then for me, I do go down to the 5 and the 2 minute, but really the 15 is the lowest time frame that I really like to go down to. But as far as using the stochastics, you can see we're very much in the oversold region back here when price was really down there. So I guess we're waiting for that to oscillate back and forth, and we'll see what we can do. And then if we kind of go forward, I just don't see anything with gold yet either. It was oversold, and so it bounced, but it too is kind of doing like what the market is doing. It is getting over the hourly 50. Maybe you can use it for a little bit of support, but right now I don't see that it's actually holding it yet. I don't see any divergence, and we still have the daily 8 underneath the 21. So I don't have a clear picture here. What could happen is, now that price is just is over the hourly 50, it could keep migrating up a little bit, kind of like the S&P did. But watch out, because if price keeps going up like this, eventually it will need to come back down and test some lows, because the 8 is still underneath the 21. So until we can get that fixed, we're still going to have some issues. And then ultimately, do watch out for the hourly 200 as potential resistance if it can get up there any place. Yeah, let's take a look at a few names out there. I'll be moving around the market as well. So Z for Zillow, and it's been doing pretty well. And this is the kind of stuff where I like to use stops and make sure, just in case something happens very quickly. And I'll do CrowdStrike next, because you'll see some similarities there. So Zillow has been holding the hourly 50 pretty darn well, actually, but now it's starting to pull away from the hourly 50. What I see is, typically when there becomes a gap between price and the hourly 50, eventually it's going to want to either come back down or go sideways in order to fill that. You can see it did it here, it did it here, it did it here, even here it did it, and you're noticing the same thing. It's starting to pull away from the hourly 50. So if that's okay with your kind of trade and your setup, then great. For me, the line in the sand is, if it gets to the hourly 50 and then really starts to break below the hourly 50, then I'm out. Like this is a good example of when you just kind of cut something and say, oop, not working. But for now, it isn't an uptrend. Just don't be surprised if there's a bit of a pullback or sideways movement while that happens. And keep in mind the market. Remember, I think that the market eventually is going to be pulling back to the hourly 50. So whenever the market starts to pull back to the hourly 50, look for some weakness and softness in particular names, individual names, as they, 80% of the stocks follow the general market. Now let's look at crowd. A little bit of a dip here. This is kind of what I'm talking about, just going sideways, waiting till it finds some support. Yesterday, some people were asking about this, and I said, well, I'm a little uncomfortable about it, because right here, price, yesterday, price was over the hourly 50 and the Moxie indicator was below 0. That's a condition that shouldn't generally exist. The Moxie indicator needs to be above 0, meaning positive momentum, in order for price to keep going up. But right now, it's negative momentum, and so price should not be over the 50 if the momentum is negative. And then what you could actually see is yesterday. And again, these are really kind of details. The trend is still up for CrowdStrike. The 8 and 21 still pretty good. I'm just saying that right now it's looking a little bit soft. It doesn't seem like it's really going to pop and explode out of here. And yesterday you could see price actually got stuck underneath the 15-minute 50 with the Moxie indicator below 0. And what I've just been telling people who are in this, like, look, I'm not exactly sure if it's a great place to initiate a trade, but I'm not seeing that this thing's probably going to really implode. But also don't be surprised if there's going to be some sort of little pullback, and we're seeing that today. There's that little bit of a pullback. Maybe it's got some more to go until it can reach the daily 21. Not quite sure, but I'm not seeing a really, really good entry signal right now. Now, maybe what it's moving right now, the reason why it's moving is because DDOG has exploded. And what was funny is just before I came on live here with you all is I did a little bit of searching through my names, and I went across D-Dog, and it hadn't moved. And in fact, when I came across this thing just, I don't know, 25 minutes ago, it was right here. It was just right down there. And it looked okay, you know, it looked fine. It looked like price is bouncing into the hourly 50 and all that kind of stuff, and everything looked okay. And I'm an end of day trader, so I like to place my trades at the end of the day. Well, D-Dog, you know, now I've come back to it. It's like, oh, look at that. Something happened. I heard just quickly, I think that there was some deal with Microsoft. Maybe they're doing a partnership, or maybe they're buying something of them, something like that. But news hit the wire, and you can see that there is just a massive amount of volume that has come out of this thing. So now this needs to go on our list, because now this might be something of interest, and we'll have to see if there's an opportunity to catch it. I'm always a little bit nervous catching something like that on news, because, you know, news gets something really shot up, and then it's like, oh, okay, and then it starts to fizzle back to what it normally was. So careful about news blips. The other thing is, I also don't really like trying to just buy it up here, because that's very extended. That's outside of the 30 ATR on the hourly chart, and it's even at the 30 ATR on the daily chart. It's up there. So if you're going to be trading something like this, either day trade it or be quick about your entry and exit. Make sure you have a tight stop, something like that, because a lot of times it does come back down to reality once that news kind of gets digested. All right, then some other interesting ones, which lends me to be thinking that the market is still a little bit soft, and I'm just waiting for a little bit more confirmation. But I do like Chewy, and this has been on my list for a while. I did trade it once. We made a few percent off of what I call the first trade, and now I'm waiting for the second trade. So the first trade is when price crosses the hourly 50. The second trade is when price tests and bounces off of the hourly 50. Now it did it a little bit there, but I looked at the lower time frame. I could see that the 15 minute still was not ready, and you know, I'm still looking at this. It hasn't confirmed yet, but this is starting to shape up and look like, you know, if this is going to be the place to go, that should be it. We should also see some support here at the 15-minute 200. Not in it yet. I want to see this thing actually turn, actually start to move up. If it does, then I would look for price to eventually get up and over the hourly 200. If this can't hold these moving averages, then I move on. So that's kind of my, you know, if this, then that. So Chewy was one, and I've even been looking at Wingstop, trying to figure out what this thing has been doing. It has been holding. You know, it looks like it wants to go. I'm trying to figure out when it might get going. And you can see here, here's the leg, here's the heel, arch of the foot, ball of the foot. You know, now we're trying to figure out, is there going to be an elf shoe eventually? And I've been looking for this thing to, you know, eventually actually come back down and hold and test the hourly 50. It looks like that might be doing it today. And here, this might be a nice little dip to kind of recheck some lows and test for some stops and test for some buying support. So Wingstop is looking interesting. It doesn't look like it really wants to roll over and die. If anything, it looks like it's kind of just building until it might actually catch some movement to the upside. Another one that seems to be in that position, Spotify, and you can see kind of the same deal, but it hasn't quite really taken off yet. So I think that there would be one more, get that cursor out of the way, one more little pullback something, because you know, basically double bottom, and then you can see here it did find some support at the hourly 50. It did find support at the 15-minute 50. The Moxie indicator was looking pretty good, and then this thing took off. But now I'm seeing this thing kind of running into maybe the daily 21 as some potential resistance, and it's starting to get a little extended from the hourly 50. And so with the market kind of not doing too much, and with the daily chart not quite being ready, I could definitely see this thing pulling back one more time into the hourly 50, and then maybe we can see that thing actually move up. And so I'd be looking at that for a good and cleaner entry. All right, now since we're halfway through, I want to make sure we go back and tell anybody else who's just been joining I had a webinar last night talking about my subscription service, my alert service, how I educate, and the kind of trades that I put out there. So what we're doing, and this is what the webinar was about, is we're actually going to be raising rates on the quarterly and the annual subscriptions. They increase on at 11:59 p.m. on October 5th. So I think that's next week, should be next week. And if you guys want to get in, you can be grandfathered into the old cheaper price if you get in before 11:59 October 5th. And then once you do, I'm actually having a live trading session on October 6th where you guys can come join. You can see how I trade. We'll put on some trades and we'll talk about stuff, and you can ask me any kind of questions that you want and see how it is that I trade and what the alert surface is going to be like. I've also said, we can always do rah to ourselves. We always want to make ourselves look as good as possible. So in this webinar, what I did is I actually brought in a lot of testimonials, just direct quotes from people who have emailed me or written something in the chat group, because we have a chat box in the alert service in the classroom. And I just thought that was going to be a little bit more impactful so you guys can actually see what it's like for other people to be talking about what it's like to be in this service, how I trade, and how it's been working well for them. In fact, you can see here with the screenshot, this gentleman is actually, I remember when I was 31, not too long ago, and he was talking about he just made a $40,000 day trading natural gas, and he's been trading since 2010 and only now just starting to really get this and understand how to trade and how to work this because of my education, because of the alert service, and because of the tools that I use. So very impactful, and I just hope you guys, if you want to check it out, we put another link in the chat box, but come check it out for the replay. All right, so let me know if you have any other questions. Hit up the chat box here. Let me know if there are any particular tickers that you guys want to see. Let's look. PLUG was looking pretty interesting. Yeah, I see it's actually started to move a little bit since I've put a mark on it. This is reminding me of, of course, it's hydrogen, kind of electrification of vehicles and stuff. But this is looking similar to Tesla in the fact that it's basically, let's do that. It's basically been flagging into the daily 50, and it's now done a double bottom off the daily 50, and we got this starting to move up, and then you can see here's your double bottom, there's your positive divergence, and now we have price over the hourly 50, and we have price essentially bouncing off of the 15-minute 50 and starting to move up. Now let's take a look at that, see what Tesla is doing. Yeah, Ken, I'll take a look at that. I've never heard of BASA. And you can see here Tesla looking very, very similar. Very similar. What do we got? Here's your bounce off the daily 50, bounce off the daily 50. The 8 is still over the 21. That's looking pretty good. I'd basically be calling that a double bottom. There's your positive divergence. Price is over the hourly 50, and it seems to be crawling along the 15-minute 50. So things are working out. With my thought and my anticipation that the market itself is going to pull back and tap the hourly 50 for the S&P, I wouldn't be surprised just to see that in the next few days or so, to see if, number one, we need the hourly 50 to kind of start turning up like this, and I wouldn't be surprised to see price either go sideways or down into the hourly 50 and then move up, and that would be a really, really good buy, is if we could get price to bounce off of the hourly 50, because what you see here, the hourly 50 is still kind of turning down like that. So it's only crossed the hourly 50. It hasn't tested it for support and confirmation. That's generally, if I'm to be real precise, that's what I'm looking for. And let's see, BASA. And Ken, yes, I see you're flying on the 6th. There will be additional sessions. So I do a live trading session for the Moxie members for the alert service once a month. Also, once you become a member, you get all of the archived sessions. You get all of my weekly videos that I put out there. You get all of the other previously recorded once a month live trading sessions. So that's also the perk of becoming a member, is that you just get all of this stuff all of a sudden. And in the webinar, I was saying that there were actually a few people who said, hey, it's really great becoming a member. I just got this backlog of information, and now I'm watching all of your old videos, and I'm actually learning from them. So there's a lot of education. It's more than just an alert service when you sign up for it. All right, let's see. Basa. Imran, good to see you. Basa, what's going on with this thing? I'm not sure what this is. The volume looks really low, so just be aware of that. It appears to be, 97,000? shares traded so far per today, I'd be really careful about that being a very, very low stock and just not a lot of volume. I mean, there's not a lot of people who have eyes on this. The daily chart looks okay. There still seems to be a bit of a gap between price and the daily 50. That could be an issue. And as of right now, I do not see an uptrend because price is still underneath something like the hourly 50, and it's still underneath something like the 15-minute 50 and the 15-minute 200. So maybe price will bounce off of the hourly 50 or hourly 200, sorry. And at some point, if price can get back on top of the hourly 50 and the Moxie indicator can get back on zero, then maybe you have an uptrend. But right now, I don't see anything because it's still underneath all of these moving averages. All right, Upwork. Yeah, I keep hearing a lot about that. Lots of interest in this with hedge funds. Okay, it looks like it's been doing much better. Finally getting going someplace. Yeah, I've talked about this one a few times. It actually did one of my favorite setups that I call a trampoline move. And a trampoline move is when price goes below the 50 and the Moxie indicator is still above zero. And even better, what made this thing really work is that it bounced right off of the hourly 200 and it bounced right off of the daily 50, and then it really started to engage with the 15-minute 50. So that looks pretty good. Now, Marina, as far as, well, should I get in right now? That would be a difficult thing to really say is a good spot. Mostly because price is up here at the third ATR on the hourly chart. It's getting pretty close to the third ATR on the daily chart. It is just generally extended. So if you're in it, great. But if you're not in it, I would really have to wait for another opportunity. And part of that opportunity would be when price gets closer to the hourly 50. You see that there's a really big distance between price and the hourly 50. It can keep going, but it usually doesn't last too long until price wants to come back down and meet that moving average. So I'd be waiting for just another opportunity. Keep that one on your radar, but see what you can do about that. And let's see. So Paul, how does Moxie work with Forex? I don't use it for Forex, but it does work as well as you have a pair of currencies that are smooth and look pretty good. I think actually I was just looking at one. I wonder if I can do recent here. I was looking at the euro, let's see, was it EUR/USD? So you can see here, let's get this thing fired up. And as long as certain stocks are smoother than others, but the ideas and the principles still work. I love the moving averages. Let's see if I can slide over and look at something like this. So right in through here, yeah, actually, let me show you. There's back here. And I don't know what kind of time frame you're using and what you're looking for, but right here is an exact example of what I look for the Moxie. Is that right here you could see price was starting to cut through the daily 50, and you can see the Moxie price trigger fired to the downside, or at least saying, not necessarily short, but definitely get out of your long. And then this is what I call an inverse trampoline move. Price should not be over the 50 if the Moxie indicator is below zero, and that was a great short signal right there. And then you could see that it was starting to put in some upward pressure and slow things down. Here's price down, here's the Moxie indicator up, and then you can see right in through here had a little pop. But I like to use moving averages, and this is where you can see the 8 crossed underneath the 21, so that was giving you a heads up that, hey, this probably wasn't going to work out and it was going to roll over and fail. Going back a little bit further, you can see here price did bounce off of the hourly 50. There's your positive divergence. The 8 got over the 21, and then price moved to the upside. So it does work. I do enjoy it, and I don't trade currencies, but as long as you can take a look at this and figure out, well, which pairs does it look good on? Some it looks better, some it looks worse, then that's how you can get to it. And it works well with futures too. Futures are just a little bit noisier because of all the extra trading days. Yeah, thanks, Imran. Appreciate answering for that. And yeah, Marina, good job with Upwork. All right, so let's see, and any other kind of things. So I'm looking at, let's see, pins. Let me switch back over to the other chart. So Pinterest is looking a little extended. This kind of goes along. I'm seeing things like this that, yeah, they're moving up, but I'm just getting this sneaking suspicion that they're getting a little extended. And the same kind of feeling I have when I got my market on this other screen is that I'm just expecting the market to come back eventually and test the hourly 50. And whenever the market starts to go down to test that hourly 50, I think that most stocks are affected by the overall market, and I would expect that to start to have some negative pressure, downside pressure on something like Pinterest. I'm seeing here just through my eyeball that looking at here, there's a bit of a gap between price and the daily 8. So it's a little bit on the extended side. It's a little too far from support, a little overbought. The other thing I'm seeing is, yes, back here, it bounced off of the hourly 50 very, very well, but we are still kind of starting to put some distance between price and the hourly 50. It's becoming a little overbought on these time frames. And then you see here we do have price trying to move itself up, and the Moxie indicator is kind of going down. So not terrible, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of strength, a whole lot of gusto on something like this. And this is the representation of what I'm seeing out there, that I'm just kind of waiting for a pullback before I really get long again on things. You could also maybe say it's kind of at this previous upper price point, price resistance with Pinterest. And then, yeah, let's see. Piton, that's another one we've been talking about quite a bit. So, Joe, what I have been talking about is Jesse Livermore is a very old famous trader back in the early 1900s, and he had a rule called the century mark rule. Basically, it's anytime a stock would get to 100 or 200 or 300 or $400, it's kind of a like round numberitis. This human psychology just gets to a round number, and it's a barrier. So we've traded this one in the past. We got in there, we took off there, and then we took the rest of it off there exactly at $100. And look what happened next. It got pummeled right back down to the hourly 50. Now it has bounced since then, but you can see it's trying to push past the 100 and then it gets rejected. So the $100 mark is going to continue to be resistance until it can really push through. And then just don't be surprised that if it does finally push through, it might later come back down, test the $100 mark, and then move up. So kind of an interesting series of events to be prepared for and to expect. Once again, just like Pinterest, I'm seeing that price is starting to pull away from the hourly 50, which is showing me that kind of in the near term it's a little bit overbought. It's pulling away from some support on that time frame. And if we look at the 15-minute time frame, we can see here that price has been moving up. Notice that the Moxie indicator has basically done a double top, and now it's kind of starting to decline a little bit. I am seeing some general slowness and some lag and some, it's just not as energetic as it once was right now. So again, I'm looking for the market to eventually pull back to the hourly 50, and I'm starting to see some indications of that likely to be happening somewhat soon because of some sluggishness in individual names like this. Flex. I don't think there's much going on with Flex. Yeah, it just kind of keeps trending sideways. I don't really have much to say about this. It hasn't been doing much in the past. If this thing can eventually get over the daily 50, that's great. But in order to do that, I want to see this thing start to engage with the hourly 50 and start to move itself up. But boy, this is kind of a tough one to go after. It just hasn't been doing much for very long. And is it now going to do something? Maybe. But I have a hard time wanting to put my money on something and say, hey, I think now is the time. It's possible, but I'd like to see a little bit more confirmation of something like that with Flex. So, David, yeah, today's pop for the market, I think it's just a continuation of this little uptrend that we have. Again, I'm eventually looking for price to stop this upward momentum and kind of roll back down to the hourly 50. All right, let's do MAT, and then we will call it quits on this. So Mattel, not looking too bad. Now, so Wall Street Herms, this is an example of one of my favorite trade setups that I talk about in the webinar and that I use routinely. This is what I call a trampoline move, when price is below the 50, but the Moxie indicator is above 0. That is a high pressure, high buoyancy situation. It's bullish, and I call it a trampoline move because typically you like jump onto the trampoline and it shoots you back out. So this actually looks like a pretty good setup. I'm liking this. It's a little choppy as a stock, but overall this price movement looks pretty good. And on the daily chart, you can see that price came right into the daily 50. The 8 is over the 21. Moxie indicator above 0. And you've got a huge squeeze, so we'll have to see what that is. But more so, you had a really nice squeeze as you came into that trampoline move right there. So yeah, Mattel's actually looking pretty good. I'd be all for that. So good choice, good pick on that one. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up just one more time as a reminder. I gave a webinar last night talking about my alert service, how I trade, and everything that I do, and letting you guys know that we are going to be increasing rates. We're going to be increasing them on at 11:59 p.m. on October 5th. And so if you guys want to get in at the old school original rates, we'll get you in, grandfather you in. As long as you keep your subscription, you're in at the original rate. And then on October 6th, I have a live trading class. So get in on the cheap price, come right into a live trading session with us, and then you can talk about that and see everything that you want with it. So I think that's pretty much it, and I think you all should have a good rest of the trading week. Happy Wednesday. And yeah, let's see if my idea about price on the SPY targeting the hourly 50 does eventually become right and happen. So thanks again, everybody.